Welcome to Protea Conversations, the podcast where leadership in business and accounting isn't just discussed, it's explored. I'm your host, Zane Stevens, and thank you for joining me as we delve into the minds of some of the most influential leaders in the industry. Our journey is one of discovery, from unraveling the unique stories that shaped our guest careers to invaluable advice that fueled their success. We're here to provide you with simple, actionable advice to accelerate your career and personal growth. Whether you're a budding professional or a seasoned executive, these conversations are designed to offer insight and perspectives that resonate with everyone. So tune in, engage, and be inspired as we build better leaders together. Welcome to Protea Conversations. Today I'm excited to be joined by Kellie Parks, the Chief Rabble Rouser at Calm Waters Cloud Accounting. Kellie is a passionate advocate for cloud-based accounting, helping firms streamline their workflows and embrace technology to create more efficient, profitable, and lifestyle-friendly businesses. With years of experience integrating cloud solutions and guiding firms through automation and process improvement, Kellie has built a reputation as a thought leader in the industry. Beyond accounting, she's a dedicated runner, skier, traveler, and live music fan, bringing energy and enthusiasm to everything she does. In this episode, we'll explore Kellie's journey, her insights of the future of cloud accounting, and how firms can leverage technology to work smarter, not harder. Kellie, welcome to Protea Conversations, and thank you for being here.
Well, thanks for having me, Zane. I want to come back to the thought leader thing. I like to think of myself more as a thought sharer. Not sure I have an original thought in my head, but I'm happy to share all the good ideas that I do here along the way.
Well, sometimes a great leader takes good ideas and puts them into a platform that is easier for people to digest. And when I think of the way you share your message to other people, I don't think about, is it an original thought by Kellie? I do think about it in a way that is a really unique and simple way to explain a difficult topic. And I think that is necessary because we get stuck in the complex of all these situations rather than realizing if we stick to the simple, more people will understand, the more chance there'll be to be successful.
Thank you. I like the way you just spun that.
Yeah, so you're definitely, in my mind, a thought leader. But I wanted to start with another title that was brought up in that introduction that you have, which is a rabble rouser, which before I'd read that, I had no idea what it is. So I did bring it up, the definition for myself to read it to everybody, for those who don't know what a rabble rouser is and want to be educated the way I was. And the term is, rabble rouser refers to a person who incites or stirs up a crowd, often with the intention of causing trouble or provoking a reaction. It can also describe someone or something that tends to inspire mobs and is considered controversial or provocative.
Oh dear. I better have changed that then, because I really don't want to be any of those things. I thought a rabble rouser was just somebody who was like more fun, stirring up a few things, changing up the norm.
Well, I think it is. I mean, I think that ties in perfectly. I wouldn't say you're controversial, but provocative, maybe. You get people thinking, and that's always positive. And so I think it's fitting.
Actually, a couple of my friends have nicknamed me Switzerland. So I try not to be too controversial, especially the older I get and the crabbier. It's just like, I don't need to be controversial here. But some of my friends call me Switzerland because I just like trying to mediate.
Well, that's great. I mean, Switzerland is a great place. Switzerland wants to sort of be friends with everyone, which, not that Kellie wants to be friends with everybody, but if you're looking for a friend in the accounting industry and you're sitting in a corner by yourself, which I tend to find myself often, Kellie will definitely come over and give you some comfort and be kind to you and include you in the group. And that's something I've really, really appreciated about you.
Yeah, well, I love doing that actually. I don't suffer, as you've probably noticed, I don't suffer from shyness, but and so I can really feel it when it's coming off of people. Even introverts would like to talk to other people probably or hear what other people have to say,
Yep.
but it can be hard to just kind of enter a space, right? So if I see somebody, I love to bring them into a space and introduce them to other people and then see what happens with that.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that. I mean, as a sort of introvert that doesn't really enjoy being around people, generally speaking, I normally need a little bit of a coaxing to get into the space, especially in some of these groups that I've been able to find myself in at the conferences where a lot of you guys know each other. You all on the speaking circuit, for a lack of a better term, and you spend a lot of time with each other. And being that sort of fringe player, it can be quite intimidating.
Yeah, I try. You know what? I try to be super conscious of that because some of us do get to spend a lot of time together. And I know how much I value those relationships and how my business and myself, I can't tell you the things I've learned from my accounting friends that have nothing to do with accounting. Just having this cohort of people that we are at the conferences together, and we do some private retreats. And so I'm super conscious of how blessed I am to have that, but how intimidating it might feel to like be there with some of us
Mm-hmm.
when it shouldn't be. I know how nice all of these people are, but I could picture how intimidating it would be because we're all so natural with each other too.
No, for sure. And it's, I can guarantee you it is a very intimidating group to be
Mm.
around. I always appreciate the time I do get with the group, but it is hard because, everybody's talking about something that's happened in the past, right? So, which is great because it means there is a community, there is people sharing knowledge that's really good for the industry.
Mm.
And, when I sit and watch it from a distance, I go, well, that's amazing. I'm glad there is a group of leaders out there that is taking this industry by the scruff of the neck, looking to do it in a better way. But when you're on the fringes of it and you're looking in, it's a little scary to try walk into a conversation.
Right. But I mean, let's take Intuit Connect last year when we were up on the outside deck
Mm-hmm.
and meeting some of those people, how open and awesome they are. But I
Yep.
can't imagine walking up to some of them if I didn't know them. So,
Yeah.
and you were a natural with them once you got introduced. There you were, right?
Yeah. I think I did okay. I will. I would say it was a great evening, and every person I met was amazing, and that, again, just underlines that I think, you know, the accounting industry, and we'll exclude all the big firms from this, right? We're focusing on the sort of core, lack of a better term, sort of small to middle market people are in really good hands. And I think we're all very fortunate that there is this group of people that are willing to give their time to educate and enlighten and try set, set a roadmap on how we can do better and bring people in and make this an industry where people want to work in, an industry that people want to spend their careers in. And I think that's really great for all of us because let's face it, it's not the most shiny object out there for new graduates to come into. People will sort of look at it like that's might be option two in case option one doesn't work out.
Right. Yeah. What's interesting is that people around me in my real life, um, they so if they hear, and I can't tell you how many times I correct people and sometimes I just give up. I am a bookkeeper. Up here in Canada, we have a super strong association and a certifying body. So I'm a certified professional bookkeeper. I was on our board of directors. I've been on our conference committee for a long time. It means the world to me. That
Hmm.
was really my starting point when I went to the first bookkeeper conference up here and started to meet some of these people. And we get quite a few accountants at that conference as well because it has been so tech forward for so long.
Yep.
But people call me an accountant all the time. Even my husband. I say, "Oh, my wife's an accountant." No, I'm a
Yep.
bookkeeper, but whatever. So, but a
Yeah.
lot of like my daughter-in-law loved how much I loved doing what I was doing. And she also loved the lifestyle that I had. I'm not necessarily talking about the money part, I'm talking about the freedom part.
Hmm.
And she loved how much I enjoyed my clients. And so she did that. I said, okay, if that's what you want to do, here's the courses that you need to take, here's the certifications you need to do. And now she's doing great at it, and she's got a lovely lifestyle going along with that. She gets to work at home with her dogs. She's got a couple of wiener dogs.
Hmm.
Questionable choice in dogs. They're adorable, actually.
Yep.
And so
As a cat
then,
person, I think any dog is a questionable choice.
really?
We have 6 cats.
Oh man, you're a crazy cat man.
We are.
That's fun.
Yep.
Oh, okay. So some of my friends are like, "This is a really great lifestyle," and I'm like,
Yep.
"Yeah, it's a really great lifestyle," but also the client connection is amazing. So you would kind of think, oh, being a bookkeeper and accountant isn't a people job. It's totally a people job. It's totally a people job. And right now I'm super grateful because my daughter who I just want to strangle for it, she has a convenience store. Believe me, I did not see this coming. It is super complicated bookkeeping, and she could never afford the work of what I'm doing. But I have a skill, because I always thought a useful skill. My son's a framer. I'm like, that's a useful skill. An electrician, that's a useful skill.
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to help my family by being a bookkeeper? Well, now it turns out it's awesome, right?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, two things there. One, I love the term bookkeeper. I'm always a little upset that it's sort of got a bit of a negative connotation over the years. I try push for it all the time. Like, I'm happy to be called a bookkeeper. Bookkeepers are critical in the accounting process, and without them, it's really hard to pull all those fancy reports if you don't have any bookkeeping work.
Right.
So, let's not ignore them. And then, yeah, I think one of the most biggest fallacies of the world of accounting in general, be it a bookkeeper, an accountant, a tax person, an auditor, is that, a lot of times you get pushed that way. It's like, you can just sit with your computer and you can work with numbers. Where it turns out everything we do in this space is all about people. It is a people business, and if you do not work on your people skills and your communication skills, it is going to be very difficult to be successful in this industry.
Yeah. And the other thing that's fun is it's a technology business. So if you like playing in tech, it's super fun.
Yeah, it's definitely gone that way over the last few years where technology is really important. We've seen that at our firm as well, and implemented, tech leads that are making sure that they're looking at technology on a regular basis, weaning out the ones that are just, shiny objects and not really useful, and focusing on the ones that actually make a difference. So that is important, and there's definitely a place. If you like technology, you like working with people, and you just happen to be good with numbers, it's probably a good place to spend your time, because you'll hit all those points that will make you happy and make it a great career.
Actually, so it's almost a fallacy that about being good with numbers. You don't actually have to be good with numbers in terms of math.
Yep.
I took calculus first year university. I have no idea how I passed because honestly, I can't do any math whatsoever. And then I have not done a single math thing in my head since.
Yep.
Like I live and die by my 10 key, and I use my URL bar. I just put in calculations in there. I put in calculations in the cells in QBO or
Yep.
Dexter, wherever. And I wish, because the numbers thing is important. You have to love data, I guess,
Yep.
and love analyzing what those numbers mean, but you don't actually have to do math. So there's a part of me that wishes you could take accounting without having to have math background, because it's not all that necessary anymore, really.
Yeah, I think what does help though is, like, math does teach you logical thinking, and if you can sort of string together it, like, you pass calculus, you don't know how. Well, there's some logical thinking behind it, right? So I always think when I'm thinking math and accounting, it doesn't mean you have to be the greatest mathematician in the world,
Right.
but if you could get through a basic math course because you can think through the logic of what needs to happen, that is
Right.
really helpful. I've seen people who struggle with math and get through it, but you can see they had the logical, like, they knew where they were going in the math, they just couldn't put it together. And then
Right.
when they rolled into accounting, they're like, oh, well, I can see the logic. I'm like, oh, in accounting, there's just logic. You don't have to worry about all these little special things that happen left, right, and center. Unless you're an auditor, then you've got to know about all the
Right.
special stuff. But this is effectively math that you get to forget about all the weird options that could happen in the situation. So as long as you can think logically, and it is a good skill. I mean, me and my brother think very similarly when we look at numbers. I became an accountant, he became an engineer, right? So both of them problem solvers in their own right. But he was probably better at math, so he went the engineering route. I was just good enough at math, so I went the
Yeah. So I have a question.
Sure.
You're from South Africa.
100%.
Say South Africa. I love the way South Africans say South Africa.
Well, I've got a very broken accent. At this point. It's converted to Californian, but South Africa.
Yeah, it's like you're missing a couple of letters when you say at the end of it. It's like South Africa or something. I can't even do it. Can I ask you why you decided to come to? Did you come or did you come with your parents?
My wife got a job, and then I followed her.
Okay.
Yeah, so she was a CFO of a winery, and the investment group brought her over to be their CFO.
So is that what led to your niche?
Yeah, that's how I tripped and stumbled into it. I was automotive and then technology, and now got over here and started working for the same business as she did. They were in the wine space, so we ended up in the wine space, and that's where I've spent the last 11 years.
Right. Now, do you only do accounting for wineries?
94% of our business is wineries.
Oh, okay. What's the other, like a friend's business?
Sort of a little bit, but also more like if you're a business owner and you have another business, we'll help you with it as long as it's not construction or SaaS. We'll come in and help you do it. So it's sort of just, it's almost the plus ones.
Oh, okay. I like that you call them the plus ones. That's cute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay, cool.
But we got totally off track of what we're supposed to be talking about, and that is talking about Kellie. And I would think is really interesting for everybody to hear about is your background and how did you end up becoming a bookkeeper? Because it is an interesting path.
Okay, but I wouldn't say it's that interesting. Can I come back to you for one more question? Because my husband and
Sure.
I were talking about this morning. He's on podcasts occasionally. He
Mm-hmm.
is on fly fishing podcasts, which apparently is way more interesting to our family and friends than accounting podcasts. So we need to
Fair enough.
change that. And
Okay.
I was telling him that you do wineries, and
Mm-hmm.
he's like, "Oh, that's perfect for you. You like wine. Do you only do wineries in California?"
No, we're in I think 8 or 9 states at the moment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we'll do a winery anywhere really. Gotta maybe start looking at the Canada market as well. Maybe an opportunity, but for now it's just in the US.
Right. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, there you go then.
Yeah.
You can come back if you want.
I
I'm
do.
guessing you're way more interesting than me because I
That
have
is a
lived
million
the same.
miles.
Honestly, I live like where I grew up, essentially. My parents
Mm-hmm.
are a couple of doors down. My kids are right here. I've got the same friends for like 60 years. Like nothing. I am the middlest of the middle class, the whitest of the whitest. Like there is nothing interesting about that. But
Until they
uh,
spend 5 minutes with you and then they realize how interesting you are and how you can show people the best way to live a life of absolute balance and happiness and do things you want to do.
yeah, well, I will say I get to do a lot of things that I want to do, but I am going to say that part of that comes with the age that I'm at. You and I were talking about you're running your kids around right now. There was
Mm-hmm.
a point I was on my own with my kids for almost 7 years. I wouldn't have thought there was much life balance then, other than the joy that my kids gave me.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the next, you know, it was 20 years of, as you know, driving them around and going to their things and all of the things. So it, but I will say I actually still prioritize some of my sports, especially. I really like to ski. I really like to go out for a run in the forest without anybody around. And so I've always been pretty liberal with doing that kind of thing. But I want
Okay.
to preface anything about my lifestyle with the fact that I am older and I'm at a point where it's a little bit easier to do, right? So because sometimes people are like, "Oh, it's so easy for her to say." Right? She's
Sure.
not hanging out with a couple of teenagers that are driving her around the corner.
Yep.
So, or you're driving them around the corner.
But you still had to know what you wanted and put that in action, right? And it didn't necessarily start as a bookkeeper. So where did your career start?
So, I actually took sports therapy at university. I did not finish. Back then, when you were trying to pick your courses, I actually picked too many science courses and not enough liberal arts to finish my science degree. So that was a pain in the butt. But that was fine because I actually wound up with my trainer's certificate.
Mm-hmm.
So that was super cool. I was working with professional athletes. Basically, I was the bigger joints, and it was really cool. But then I kind of, no matter how gorgeous they were, I realized I really didn't like one person on person business
Okay.
model. I didn't felt like I wanted to be more in the business to business model. And so somebody that I was working on owned a business and I wound up going into sales for him. And then one thing led to another. And then the next thing I know, I'm in the marketing business. And so, and then when I was working in the marketing business, I realized I didn't want any small sales. I wanted big sales. I wanted to deal with bigger companies. So I wanted the real B2B market, not just small business to small business market. And so then that led to the marketing company that we had, and we had an import program from China. Can I talk about the import program from China? Because that was super interesting.
No, I'd love to hear about it.
So when you have so we had corporate clients, we had companies that were basically led by securities commissions rules. So we had banks, insurance companies, mutual fund companies, that kind of thing. Very corporate. And so tone on tone, everything was very low key. Like there was no flash to any of the stuff we were importing from China. So this was the swag side, or the portfolios. You know how you get a portfolio? It used to be in a binder.
Yep.
Well, we had a binder import program from China. As odd as that sounds, it was super interesting because we're dealing with an entirely different culture and way of doing things. And there's some lessons for us in the accounting industry. And that is just keep trying, man, because we would send over the drawings of what we wanted. And we would get prototypes back that were exactly what we wanted. But every single time we would get something that had flash to it, that had color to it, that like if there was pens to go with the binders, the pens would light up, or they'd have dingle balls hanging off the end, or they'd be sparkly. Or they would send us other swag not related to the program we were doing at all. And at one point, we wound up getting some of this fun swag because we were doing like a kids program at one point for the one of the banks or whatever. And so I kind of love that they never gave up on what they thought we wanted. Yep. It did get to be annoying. I think there's some lessons as accountants for that, and that is maybe know what your market is.
Yep.
And who you're marketing to. But if you think you've got some really great idea, maybe just keep throwing it out there a little bit. Don't be as pushy as this program was. But it was funny. So you deal with a broker. And our broker's name, we also learned this. His name was Yan Lee, and his company was called Yan Lee Trading. And every single time he called us, he had call display, and he would say, Kellie, it's Yan Lee of Yan Lee Trading. And it was so ingrained in him because I don't know how many times I said to him, Yan, I only know one Yan. And I only know one Yan Lee who owns Yan Lee Trading. It was these fun relationships. And he introduced me to bubble tea. Yep. So, which I never did get a hang. Do you drink bubble tea?
No, not a chance.
No, it's just, not my gig.
It's just a distraction to the caffeine that I want.
Oh, well, there you go. So the import program was interesting, but what was happening was in our marketing company. And so in 2009, because we were on Max and I'm needing to do estimating and invoicing properly. So basically that stuff was being done in Excel. I was on numbers, so I was on a Mac, so it was in numbers, and it was going out in the documents. But that wasn't working for me. So I, in 2009, took up with FreshBooks.
Okay.
And that was great. You could actually job cost fairly well in FreshBooks, and certainly you could invoice properly in FreshBooks, and you could send them off on the World Wide Web. That was fantastic. And then we were running parallels so that we could run QuickBooks online, QuickBooks Desktop. Here in Canada, we didn't have QuickBooks for Mac. So I was running parallels. That was a bit of a pig though. Like that. Do you use a Mac at all? Okay. Parallels allows you to do Windows programs. It basically parallels the Mac into two separate operating systems. So then I wound up, that wasn't working. I wound up getting a PC just to run QuickBooks. And I absolutely loved, like the minute I met QuickBooks, I was like, this thinks like I think. So we moved our job costing into that. But by 2009, were already spending a good chunk of the winter in Florida. So my girlfriend told me how to host QuickBooks Desktop on Dropbox. So we were basically on the cloud on QuickBooks Desktop for a long time before QuickBooks Online was available for us here in Canada.
That's so interesting. So that's how you got into it, just because you needed to solve your own problems, so you sort of taught yourself?
Yeah, so what was happening was stuff was going off to the accountants. It was fine, but it's 6 months behind. And then we're getting, the stuff back. I was doing job costing anyways. Basically, our marketing business was all project management.
Okay.
So you're starting with the end product, where it needs to be delivered and who needs to be, and then you work your way up to the start. So you start at the end and you work your way. It was called workbacks. And then we
Okay.
work our way to the starting point, and who are all the stakeholders, who's going to do the design, where you're going to order, because we ordered paper from China as well, by and large.
Okay.
Depending on the size of the job, sometimes we could have it printed offshore as well.
Mm-hmm.
So then, then I'm job costing everything. And I realized how much I love that, but
Mm-hmm.
also how much those same skills translated into doing books. And so then I was doing a few books for a few other people, just because now I'm loving it so much. And
Okay.
then eventually transitioned into
Mm-hmm.
that's not with the marketing business anymore.
So running around solving all your problems for your clients in the marketing business, you just decided I'm going to take on some accounting clients because I love it so much.
Yeah, well, and then it kind of grew a little because the accountant who was doing stuff for me, um, then he's like, you get the creative industry. Can you do a few more of those? And then I realized actually that I loved doing that. So it just was this little thing that grew. And my
Okay.
affinity for tech, because in the marketing, particularly in the print industry, the same thing that happened in 2012 to 2014 with this whole transition to cloud technology that was wonderful and awful all at the same time. We were 20 years ahead of that. It doesn't sound like a big deal now, but when PDF came out and we
Mm-hmm.
no longer had to send these giant press sheets,
Yep.
we went direct to plate. FTP sites.
Yep.
So FTP sites came. We're no longer sending things by courier. I'm free to be in Florida, or
Mm-hmm.
we loved Colorado, so we were spending a good chunk of the winter in Colorado. It opened up all of this freedom, but and it improved our clients' lives because they were getting things done in a more timely manner. Everything was
Yep.
driven by securities commissions, so we were always tight on deadlines.
Yep.
And then it's the same skill sets, and it's the same love of technology that translates into the accounting world.
Really interesting. So when did you decide, okay, I'm a full-time bookkeeper?
He's running them both.
Mm-hmm.
16, maybe?
Okay.
Mostly, yeah, I would
So there's
say.
some overlap for a while, and then at one
Yeah,
point you just decided, okay, this is where I'm going. Forget
yeah,
about the marketing
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Well, not quite forgot about it because you're doing a great job of marketing yourself still. But I'm sure those skills help. But that's when we decided 2016 we're going in, we're going to be a bookkeeper. That's what clearly gives you energy, and it allows you to live the lifestyle that you're looking to live. So really beneficial. And now you have a bunch of stuff going on, right? You still have the bookkeeping,
Yeah.
but you do a bunch of other things as well.
Yeah. So because I was in marketing and because I was in the cloud technology so early, I was working with the app partners, especially on, okay, it needs to do this. Please don't let it do that. So I was lucky enough to be working with companies like Intuit, and HubDoc was one of my super early app partners that I was working with. Dext, I mean, I work with a ton of the app partners. But
Mm-hmm.
let's take HubDoc, for example. They were like, okay, well, you're working with the dev guys over here, but we're all on a call. And then they're like, can you write an article for us? And I'm like, sure, I can write an article for it. And then, so I started my very first foray into working with the app partners outside of dev stuff
Mm-hmm.
was writing for HubDoc. And then Intuit picked up on that. So I was doing some writing for them. And then I was invited to be part of their trainer writer network.
Okay.
And so then the next thing you know, I'm doing teaching work for Intuit. And then I'm doing teaching work for all kinds of app partners. It was super fun and early in the beginning, and I just happened to be in the right place at the right time with the right background. And so that was the little adventure that grew. I didn't say to myself, oh, you know what, I want to be, and I don't think of myself as a speaker, but I don't like, I'm going to be a speaker. That
Yeah.
never crossed my mind. It still doesn't feel like that. It's like this natural transition into all of these super fun opportunities.
So if you don't think of yourself as a speaker, what do you think of yourself as? Like a teacher, or is there a way that you sort of think about it?
Yeah, two ways. One is a teacher, for sure. And I've been given lots of fun platforms to do that. And then the other one is some people, I can't stand the word influencer, but I get to be an advocate for what I think is going to change accounting lives and client lives. And that has been really a really good ride because I am knee deep in development work as well. So rather than the app partner saying, I think the accounting industry wants this, I get to be a voice that says that's actually not what we want. And by the way, that button over there really stinks, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of fun.
Do you think it's an advantage that you're sort of coming from another industry before accounting, that you can sort of see through all of the garbage that gets thrown your way a little bit, because you're an end user of a different product before you got into the bookkeeping world, so you know what does and doesn't work?
Yeah, 100%. That totally led to where I am, is coming from the marketing industry. And especially since the marketing industry was so tech heavy,
Yep.
right? So tech driven, like forever, like Photoshop. So there was a product called InDesign. I'm probably going to get too far into the weeds. Right. Okay. So a product called InDesign came along that was set to disrupt some of the other creation products, design products.
Okay.
And there was a lot of blowback on InDesign, for example. Are you looking up InDesign right now?
I am.
Yeah. And so that was a huge disruption. And everybody was like, oh, this is just going to stink. And it did stink in the beginning. QuickBooks Online was like a momentous step backwards from QuickBooks Desktop. And so what happened was, and a friend of mine who was formerly at Intuit and was one of the handlers, he looked after the trainer writer network or the accountant network. And he and I laughed. I was early on in QuickBooks Online just because I already loved online technology. And I had a US URL at that point. I was in
Okay.
Florida and I'm monkeying about in QuickBooks on, and I'm playing with it. I'm playing in the US version without knowing it.
Yep.
And then as soon as it came to Canada, I got the Canadian version, and it was like DOS met Excel.
Oh, wow.
And so what happened was, though, the original QuickBooks Online platform is not even the same platform. So as they got new customers, they put them on the new code. Let's call it the new code, the new actual QuickBooks Online. They
Okay.
put them on that one. But what they did was not migrate the old ones off nearly as quickly as we would have liked. So
Yeah.
early adopters were last in on the new platform, and what a difference. I mean, I was having a day yesterday. To be honest, I was having a day in QuickBooks Online, and I called a friend and I was ranting to her. But on those days when it's not doing what I want, I still try to keep in mind we have come light years in the services we can provide for our clients and where we can provide them from. So even on those bad days, I try to keep in mind that I would not want to be back where I was before.
That is good advice. Sometimes we have to let go of the past and be thankful for what we got right now. It is interesting that I never knew that there was a totally different platform for QuickBooks Online. It does sort of explain a lot of the time when I run into more experienced accountants that love QuickBooks Desktop because they're like, oh, QuickBooks Online was so terrible when it first came out, and they've never tried it again. Where, I only arrived in the US in 2013. So my first introduction to QuickBooks Online was 2014. I was like, this thing is amazing. I don't know what you people are all going on about, because I think it's better than desktop. And, I've been an advocate for it since then. Really love the platform. I think it does a lot of great stuff. Now, granted, I don't actually do a lot of work in QuickBooks anymore. My job has moved on from that, but I do love it. My team find it useful. with a remote team in another country, having the online access is obviously a lot easier than a desktop version, and hosting as well. So we see a lot of benefits for growing from it, but it at least explains why some people are so adamant that QuickBooks Online is a terrible platform.
Yeah, actually, can I give you a change management example that went on right here at our house?
Sure.
So we live in a 100-year-old cabin that we bought 7 years ago. We bought it from my husband's family. He has family, so we bought it. So we bought this cabin, and it was a seasonal cottage. Our heart is in it. Both our families grew up we live on a lake on a point. We both grew up here with family cottages. And so most people would have taken it down, but then my family banded together, and we live in a 100-year-old cabin that has some quirks, we'll call it. But the irony of it is completely tricked out as a smart home. And
wow.
my husband did not want me to do that. He was like, no, I don't want a smart home. I have a girlfriend who just basically built a house and didn't smart home any of it, like not even an outlet, because she's so just, he did not want it to happen. So I did what every good wife does. He went away for the weekend and I smart homed the house. So we put my dad helped me. We put on the new thermostat. We changed out switches and plugs and light bulbs and tied everything into Alexa and all of the things.
Yep.
And so when he came home, he was not the least bit happy with me that I had done that. And he's like, well, I just want to run around and turn on lights. And I'm like, go ahead. You can still turn on a light.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't mean you can't. And so now he and Alexa had like this whole tortured relationship, and he would yell at her, and sometimes she doesn't do what you want and all the things. So anyways, he got used to the smart home. So now he loves that Alexa, turn on good morning, and all of the good morning lights come on, or whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
So, but when the internet goes out and he now officially has to run around and turn on a light bulb, he is not happy. And I think that's that same analogy that goes with some of this things, like yesterday when QuickBooks was giving me a hard time. It's like, okay, but I still don't really want to go back to the old way of doing it. And so we get mad that the technology has gotten so great for us that the minute that we don't have it running the way we want it to, now we're like, why did I do this? Right?
Yeah, I think we're pretty spoiled with what is available to us as an industry, not just like QuickBooks, but just the apps that are out there, and how much they make our lives easier from a day-to-day process, from doing our job process, that when things don't work, we get so upset. And we all do it. We all do it. Like, man, this is just not working for me. Like, I mean, we use Carbon as our practice management software, and it went down on Friday afternoon. And everybody was on a text going, I guess we're going for a weekend. I'm at a point where I literally can't do my job unless Carbon's working. I'm that reliant on it. And it quickly makes you realize in those points where they get frustrated with some of the things they do. But then when I had to go to Outlook and all of a sudden try to run my day, I was like, I just can't operate without the technology. So I probably need to take a deep breath when things aren't going my way properly and remember what the alternative is. Because even in that situation, it felt like I went back to like carrier pigeon days to be able to do my accounting work. Mike, okay, we've been all over the place. And you said this is not going to be interesting. You really are one of the most interesting people I know, Kelly, and mostly make me really happy to talk to you because you bring such good energy to the room and make me smile and tell great stories. And that is really good. But I am interested, what is next for Kelly? What is on your goals in the near future?
Yeah, actually, I've been really honing those. And Zane, I hope also you think that I listen to you well.
Oh, you're amazing.
Okay, good. One of my big goals is to be a more active listener and find out. So hopefully I am listening well as well.
You are.
So
I mean, you're listening well, but you're also following your title and sort of running your own course at this point. And this should, I'm going to be, normally it's Protea Conversations by Zane Stevens. It's going to be Protea Conversations by Kellie Parks. It's a good thing. I love it. I'm learning a ton, and I think this is really insightful stuff. But back to your goals. What are your goals going forward?
Yeah, because I've been really thinking about them, because I am part-time now, and I have to decide in order to stay part-time, some stuff has got to go. And I'm really working on what gives me joy. So I had an opportunity with a new app partner, and I basically said, you're going to have to give me some super compelling reasons. And I don't mean that the way it just came out. I don't mean that. But if I'm going to get behind this, the person left an app that I love, and now they've gone to a new app, and it's got great possibilities. But I got to learn to say no to some of this stuff, right?
Yep.
So, my biggest goal is to build the bookkeeping side back up. I basically have 4 businesses going on underneath my umbrella, and they are 25% each. So it's the partnership, it's the working with firms, it's the teaching, or the whatever you want to call it, going to conferences, basically, the junkets, as my husband calls them, and the bookkeeping business. If the only thing I can keep, like if I can only do one thing, it's going to be the bookkeeping. I'm going back to that. So I've been working on building that up, and my target audience is accounting firms to do their QuickBooks book, their own, not their client files, theirs, because those are still who I love dealing with. That's who I still want to hang out with. I want to do it differently. And I love the books of accounting firms. I'll take on some professional services. That's what I do have anyways. And I've got some accounting firms. So I changed. So I've had some friends revisit my website on that. I've started to take some stuff off my website, or put so much friction behind it that somebody really has to pay me well for me to do it. There's no other way to say it, right? And then I reduced the friction on my bookkeeping. So although I talk about automated discovery processes and all of that, and I believe so mightily in a discovery form, and make sure the people that are getting through to you are only the people that are going to value you, like getting rid of the tire kickers, especially since so many bookkeepers especially can be doormats, and they'll just take the calls and give them all the answers. I don't need to do that anymore. My niche is so tight, given that it's QuickBooks online for accounting firms, that yesterday, so I had a few friends run through my discovery form, and they're like, why are you doing that? And I'm like, why am I doing this? So I took my discovery form off, and I just put up my booking link, and I put up my phone number, and I put up my email, because I have said this is all I do. And I don't think there's an accounting firm out there that's going to abuse that. I think a discovery form is super important, because accountants and bookkeepers get abused because we're so darn nice. And so that was a big step, because that is going to reduce any friction. So somebody can just call me, and we can talk right then and there, or they can book a call with me, and we can just say, because it's already on my site what I do and don't do. So I'm like, just call me. So that aligns with my goal of building back up the bookkeeping side, because that was much bigger before.
Very interesting. I think there's a good lesson there for people, is to understand your priorities. And the way you said was just like, there has to be a compelling reason for somebody to take some of that time from your other priorities. And being in a place where you can set those priorities, you understand what's important to you, and say no to things that maybe don't align with where you want to go or what you're trying to achieve. I think that is huge, and I think we should all be working towards that. I'm trying to be better at that as well, because I like to say yes to everything as well, and take on a little bit too much at times, mostly because I like to work, but also because I'm not the greatest at saying no. But I think it's a great lesson for all of us, is understand what those priorities are, make sure you're working towards them. And if something else comes along, it could be worthwhile, but is it worthwhile right now? You need to be able to make that assessment and see if it does fit in within your priorities.
Yeah, well, and I'm at Scaling New Heights. I've got a couple of sessions, and one of them is automating your discovery process. I still advocate for, my process is still fairly automated. I mean, there's a booking link. I don't, there's, and
don't
then
need an email, and you don't have to run back and forth at different times and things like that. So that's good.
And then the next step is a file review, and that's completely like the process for that. They fill out a form, they pay for it, and then it sets it up. I use Financial Sense, you use Carbon. It sets up a client, and it kicks off a workflow in Financial Sense. They upload things because it gives them instructions from the type form, what's going to happen. They do that, and then I do my thing. And so that side of it. But I still think the part of saying no that having that discovery form. The other thing that happened was sometimes even I had a really good referral from an accounting firm. It sounded like it was going to be perfect, but I still sent the discovery form. This is a couple of years ago. And they filled it out, and we absolutely were not a fit because they weren't going to connect their bank fees.
Ah,
And that was a hard no for them, not even a maybe, right? Because your forms can
well,
have maybes,
yep,
because you don't want to kick everybody out. And
yep,
so they weren't going to, but then they sent me a note and they said that they really appreciated that we didn't wind up having a call because it wasn't going to work for him. And
yep.
then he referred a really great client to me. So I still believe in it, but in my niche being so honed, I don't need it.
If you are in the accounting space and you are looking at that automation of that process, the intake process, go check out Kellie's stuff on that. We used it at Protea, and we're still working on it and trying to refine it more and more as we go through the process. Um, we're pretty niche, but there's a lot of different variables in it, so that we're still trying to figure out what the best way to make that match fit into it. Um, maybe we need also ask the question on sort of ask enough questions around technology to see if people are open to it, because we do see that that's where we have a lot of friction. We're like, yeah, we'll do that until they actually have to do it. So
Right.
maybe yes, no, maybe is probably a better way to go versus yes or no, because if they're a maybe, they're probably going to say yes, and that doesn't necessarily actually mean yes. Something for me to think about, and something for all the listeners to think about as well.
Well, can I do a plug too? I wouldn't come to me anymore. I
Well,
mean, come to a
there's
session
great
where I
there's
am,
great
or
articles. Just use them as a blueprint.
yeah, but also join some of the communities.
Mm-hmm.
Like and Automation Town by Chad Davis. I mean, that's where a lot of that is. I
Yep.
mean, we know the groups. There's some great community groups out there for all that kind of support. I am
Mm-hmm.
still doing work with firms, but it's pretty specific. It's more fixing things than building things now.
Okay. If you were talking to somebody that was considering coming to the accounting space, become a bookkeeper, what advice would you give them?
Embrace technology would definitely be a part of it. Keep that human touch part of it in mind. You could sit back and just be in the background, but if you actually want to own a firm or run a firm, then you're going to need to work on your human skills. I think would be a big part of it. And you need to work on expectations and boundaries, probably. And how can you make technology set some of those boundaries and expectations for you so that you're not directly saying no? Did that make sense? Not,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it did.
yeah.
Yep.
And don't think of it as just strictly loving math, which is where we
Yep.
started this whole conversation, right?
Yeah. Drop that sentence in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. You know what? I think you still need to know core accounting, though. This is
Yep.
the one thing that I see. You can't come in and then get QuickBooks certified and think you're going to deliver a good product,
Yep.
because you need to live in the balance sheet, and no amount of certification is ever going to teach you about debits and credits and the importance of the balance sheet and why the balance sheet matters. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the fundamental thing that underlies accounting. If the balance sheet is a piece of crap, then everything else is wrong.
Yeah. I talk about that often, the importance of reconciling that balance sheet and making sure it's all accurate. I believe everybody should go get some education. There's enough certifications through, the different bookkeeping associations that you can go get the basics that can help you. It is a bit of a warning for people that are getting a bookkeeper in as well. Some background in accounting does help because they can actually understand the way it works all the way through the process, and something you should consider. But the certification helps. Knowing how to use the technology helps. But if you've got the accounting basics in the background, it goes from good to great pretty quickly.
Yep, exactly.
Kellie, this has been amazing. I really do appreciate your time. Definitely the most unique episode of Protea Conversations, which I'm not surprised by at all. I was bracing myself for a little different today, which is why I appreciate you so much, because you do bring some different, you bring some fresh air to the accounting space. You keep me on my toes, and you sort of force me to be better. I see the things that you're doing, and it makes me want to be a better accountant and a better person. So thank you for always doing that and always putting your best foot forward.
Wow. Well, thank you, Zane. I'm blushing. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. And I always love being in your presence. You have a lovely, calm manner about yourself. And of course, you've got an excellent starting point with the accent.
It definitely helps. Kellie, we like to end off Protea Conversations with some rapid fire questions. I have 5 questions for you if you're ready.
Sure.
What is your dream vacation?
Man, Japan. I want to
Yeah.
go do some hiking in Japan.
Sounds like a great option. Can't convince my wife on that trip yet, but I'm
I
trying.
can't convince my husband either. We just came off of Sedona, a couple of weeks hiking there, but he wants to go back to New Zealand.
I think ours, Australia's lined up. We have family
Yeah.
out there, so. What would your death row meal be? What would your final meal be if you had to make that decision?
Oh, the Green Mile meal. That's what my husband calls it, the Green Mile meal. So, I don't know. I like a good chicken wing. It's got to be breaded though, not the naked ones. If it's going to be my Green Mile, and it's going to be accompanied by something called Miss Vicky's chips, which is a kind of kettle cooked chip up here.
Okay.
Unbelievable. So, or maybe my husband's pot roast.
Those are all great options. What is a quality?
Wait, can I ask you, what's your Green Mile meal?
It would be pork chop, mashed potatoes, Brussels sprouts with a nice cold beer on the side.
All right, Brussels sprouts. Interesting. I love them, but interesting. Okay,
Yep.
Cool.
Yep, I might have to make that this weekend. What is a quality you appreciate in a good friend?
Empathy, for sure. What I like is honesty. I don't need brutal honesty, but decent honesty. I would like if people say the same things to me as they say when I'm not there.
Agreed. Number 4. Is there a favorite book that you recommend everybody reads?
No. My kids say that I am the world's most shallow reader. My favorite author is somebody called John Sanford. I'm a murder mystery thriller gal. So no, I read a lot. None of it is important. Yeah, it's a guy named John Sanford. I'm going to tell a quick story. So a friend of mine who sadly has passed away has this insane library collection. We love the same authors, but John Sanford is the favorite of both of us. He flew to California for a book signing, and he brought me back a book signed for me. And so that will be one of my most treasured things that I will ever own, even though I generally get my books from the library.
Really nice. That is a great story. Thank you for sharing that. Last question. What is a favorite piece of technology that makes your life better?
Definitely Alexa. As shallow as that sounds, she does a lot of little stupid things for me. I've talked about running around turning on lights. I don't want to. When we travel quite a bit too,
yep.
So if we've got the heat turned down, so smart tech maybe, because I can turn the furnace up from afar. I can also turn the music on because our kids generally stay with us. I can turn the music on when I'm not here and creep them out.
That's a great bonus right there.
What's your favorite piece of tech? That's a tough one, right?
I would say it's probably my Apple Watch.
Yeah,
just keeps me more accountable, specifically to get up and walk around when I've been sitting at my desk for 6 hours without looking up.
Right.
So I like it from that standpoint to keep me accountable, get the vibration, time to do something. So I've seen a definite improvement in my health since I've got the Apple Watch.
Oh, nice.
Kelly, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you being a guest on Protea Conversations.
Well, thank you, Zane. I appreciate you having me.
And with that, we ended another Protea Conversations. Thank you for joining us in this journey of learning and inspiration. Today, we've gained insight from our guest and taken another step towards understanding the diverse tapestry of leadership in business and accounting. Remember, each conversation is a step towards the positive transformation of business leaders. We hope our discussion has given you valuable takeaways to apply in your own career and life. Don't forget to subscribe to Protea Conversations on YouTube and Spotify so you never miss an episode. We'd also love to hear your thoughts and experiences, so connect with me on social media channels. I'm most active on LinkedIn and would love you to join the conversation. Join us next time for more engaging stories, advice, and conversations that matter. Until then, keep striving for excellence, embracing growth. Thank you for listening, be kind, and goodbye from Protea Conversations.